Welcome at 7 o'clock. We're going to get started with the Wednesday wind down with Dan and Friends, the show for frustrated backpackers and hikers. I like to hike. I like to drink beer. It's really challenging to do both of those in the time of COVID-19. So that's what we're doing. That's what the show's about. I'm Dan Conger. I'm the host. Tonight, I'm drinking a Walker 805. And with me tonight is, please introduce yourself.
I am Kit Davis, friend of Dan, and I am enjoying a Stella Artois.
Wonderful. Cool. So this is kind of an interesting topic today because there's a little bit of a morph to it. So Kit's title that she has is Thinking About Hiking the JMT. Mine, I was kind of thinking it's a little bit of things that you learned about long distance hiking from the JMT. And it's some morph of all of those, right? This is not intended to be a JMT tutorial. It's not intended to take someone that hasn't hiked before and say, here's A, B, C, and D. These are just kind of some bigger thoughts, kind of a step back and how, what, how, why. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kit in just a second. I'm going to share my screen, and this will be. We're talking about the JMT and long distance hiking. So, Kit, have at it.
Okay. Well, thanks, Dan. If anybody has been on the JMT, they would recognize this. This is Ray Lakes staring at Painted Lady. And no, that is not my tent. I just really like the shot. So in fact, I walked into somebody's campsite and just kind of hunched over and took the picture and ran away.
I was accusing you of having a brick of a tent.
A little beanie of a heavy tent. It's a heavy tent, and the gear over there is like, I wouldn't take that, but be that as it may.
Okay, good.
I probably should have, this is morphing. It's kind of part of the whole long distance backpacking, discussion that we have. Oh, that's Lambert Dome and Tuolumne Meadows. I love that. That's absolutely one of my favorite places in the world. So that's why I included that. The long distance hiking is, I would define that as anything that's longer than the food that you can carry, which for people, that's going to vary. For some people, they get a full bear canister and it is gone in 5 days. It's gone. Others can make it last for 10. So it's kind of a subjective sort of thing, but we generally think of it as more than a week, but it's definitely more than you can carry in food. You're going to need to resupply.
I like that definition. I have never really thought about it in that way. More than when you need to supply. Yeah, well, I'll buy that.
Okay, I'm good with that. The John Muir Trail definitely fits in that because it's, 211 miles from terminus to terminus. But the terminus at the south end, of course, is Mount Whitney, which you still have to get down off of it another 11 miles. So it's 222 miles plus whatever you're doing, to resupply. I've done the bits and pieces of the John Muir Trail, not as section hiking. It's just part of other Sierra things that I've done over the last 15 years, 18 years, and just loved it so much. Could not wait to do this in its entirety. So I was invited, fools that they are, by Jim Kurtz and Peter Levin to go with them, and I accepted. And so that was the start of the John Muir Trail. Dave Cowan was to have joined us, but unfortunately he was prevented from doing so. So he played a hero's role later on in the trip.
Yes, I think we talked about him. And Dave, I know you're listening. My recommendation is you never need to buy a beer again when you're around these folks.
Nope. I owe you beer for life or longer. And at one point, Dan goes, "He carried your trash out?" I was like, yeah, he did, actually. Yeah. All right, let's see. Ours turned out to be plus or minus along with the resupply. I lost something or forgot it and had to go back, so I added another 2 miles onto my trip, 228 miles. Wow. Elevation varies. Some online resources say it's 44,000 feet of elevation gain. I think the highest I saw was 53. Before I did the JMT, I thought, 44 seems about right. These passes, this, that, and the other. When I got back, no, hell no, 53. Definitely 50.
You always claim the bigger number, right?
Always. So we didn't intend to start out this way, but we did it in 16 days and a half, 16 days, 4 hours, no 0 days. So that averaged just a hair under 14 miles a day. And we averaged just a hair over 3,000 feet of elevation gain per day. So it's It's serious, you know.
Yeah, right.
Serious.
It's not a walk in the park.
Right. So that segues into considerations, you know, what to do. So the first consideration actually that's very important, I think, is why do you want to do this? And although that seems like a stupid question, you need to be kind of, you need to kind of look within yourself, like, what do I want to get out of this? Why am I doing this? There's a different reason for everyone. Sometimes it's a bucket list thing that's highly legit. You do it for beauty. Sometimes it's in a memorial type of a thing, like, why are you doing this? There's a really good book that I read called Pacific Crest Trials, not Trails, Trials. Peter Levin gave it to me, and we were to be doing the PCT, he in its entirety and me for a good portion of it this year. So in preparation for that, I read this. You'll notice I'm not on the PCT. And one of the things it said is be very clear about why you want to do this, because there's going to come a time in your long distance hike when you don't want to do this anymore. And you need to be able to look back and go, oh yeah, that was what was in my head. You know, that helps your attitude to stay kind of where it needs to be. Because stuff is going to happen. On our particular jaunt, we hit that fire out of Road's End.
Oh, yeah. Right. I'm remembering that year. Right. Well, yeah. I'm kind of thinking that why is really critical too, because, you know, if it's a day hike, let's say let's say I'm like, okay, let's go on this day hike. We'll be back by dinner time. And it turns into a death march. Yeah. At some point you're like, okay, Dan's a jerk. He took me on a death march, but I know I'll be home by sundown at some point, right?
Yeah. That's not the case with I will have forgiven him by the next day.
Right. But you might have a bad day. You might have a whole bad week. And you need to dip down into that why rather than just doing it on a dare.
Yeah. You have to be really solid about it. And then the other thing is, this is like a little of the metaphysical thing about hiking. And I did learn a lot of this because of this trip, because of the fire, it absolutely consumed over a week of our time. It was hard to breathe, hard to see. We had to completely adjust our schedule. We got up at the crack of dawn, and then hiked as fast as we could, as hard as we could, until the smoke settled down. And then you couldn't breathe. You couldn't do anymore. So you just hunkered down. And it wasn't fun. And it wasn't pretty. And we were still going. And look back on it now, and that's probably some of the richest experiences I've ever had. Dave Cowan, when he resupplied us, he went up over Kearsarge Pass, came down, and just was right in the thick of it. And Dave could tell you that, I mean, you couldn't see more than 50 feet ahead of you in some places.
So what was your particular reason for wanting to hike on the JMT? What was your inside reason?
Truthfully, I want to do it for beauty. It is the most beautiful section of one of the most beautiful mountain ranges in the world. Seriously, I want to do it for beauty. I wanted to experience all of that again.
So I'm almost thinking, and why I know this from experience, that I see a potential conflict coming up if your trail mates are doing it for a different reason. So if you're on the trip for beauty and I'm on the trip, not me, for for the record on the JMT, someone's not going to have a good time, right?
Definitely. So that's another thing. I have learned this in hiking with these two guys before. First of all, both of them are well over 6 feet. And when I stand straight and tall and I have my hiking shoes on, I'm 5'3". So that means our stride is not the same. Mm-hmm. And they hike a different style than I do. I'm social. Giant surprise. They hike solo for a good part of the day. And they're very happy doing so. So we've got different types of styles of how we hike. And so we kind of need to know that ahead of time. What's your style? What's important to you? Like, are you the kind that you get up at 6 a.m. and your pack is packed and your poles are leaning against it and you're tapping your foot by 6:30? Where's the rest of us, you know? Or are you, I'm not going till I've had the second cup of coffee type? So, yeah.
Well, one potential compromise on that, or because I've done a workaround similar to that when my trail mates hike at a different speed. Usually I'm in the back, somewhere towards the back, is we'll hike separate and then regroup at certain times of the day.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did you do something similar to that?
Well, we did. Jim would start earlier than Peter and I did. It was important to him to do that, and he liked it. And I mean, he was up and gone. And then we would usually catch up to him because our hiking styles are a little bit different. He goes long, but he doesn't necessarily go super fast. We would catch up with him sometime before lunch. We would always have lunch together. And then we would kind of ding-dong each other through the rest of the day. We agreed to kind of keep tabs on each other. And we've had to work that out over several different backpacking trips together.
Right. And I could see that too on a longer hike, getting that out of the way on lesser trips. To do that
Yes.
on a trip that you're going to be out for 2 weeks or thereabouts, that could be a tough one to figure out. I could see people dropping out. I mean, the entire trail might not be for everybody, and if they haven't figured that out, that could be an issue too.
It really can be. One of the things, like in considerations when you're picking the people you go with, I've learned to pick them because of their character and their personalities, just kind of what their traits are. First of all, they're my friends. Mm-hmm. And then second of all, we share the things that are important. And, like one of the things that's important to me is a sense of humor. It carries you a lot. It's not important to everybody.
Yeah, right.
In fact, I firmly believe I'm a severe irritant to quite a few people. I'm so sorry. And then strongly suggest shakedown hikes. I mean, where it's a real hike. It's like maybe for 3 nights, you're carrying a for reals pack, just kind of see how you sync, how you hike together, at the very least.
So one last thought on this consideration thing, and this is something I've kind of realized, is that you might start with a large group of people that are going to do it. So let's say you've got whatever you think your optimum size is. So for me, I always think 6 people is about as many as I want to have on a trip. Mm-hmm. So I will pull a permit for 6. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is, I was going to say crap, but life happens, right? Someone sprains, and this happened on my first Whitney trip. Someone sprained their ankle. Someone had a new job. Then this came up, and then it gets smaller and smaller. It almost never gets bigger, unless it's that you've got, hey, I got one spare spot, and it's the Tuesday before you leave. Hey, I've hiked before. Can I come? We're like, yeah, sure. What the hell? That's I could see that getting sideways really quick too. All right. I like that you're laughing about that one because, I see that being the case.
Oh yeah, for sure. Nope, I've never. That is Sky Blue Lake.
That's gorgeous.
We were talking about this at a time.
Yeah.
So is that on the GMT? No. Is it gorgeous? Yeah, it's up above Soldier Lakes, out of Cottonwood Lakes, out of.
Oh, okay. Yeah, now I know where that is. Yeah. I haven't been there, but so you've got some logistics or processes that you think that are worth considering, right?
Yes. Okay. So just bigger picture, this is like as you're planning a long distance hike. Now for the JMT, you have to make a decision. Are you going to go for it in its entirety, or you want to do a section hiking? And obviously the time constraint is going to be the biggie, and your personal interests. And I think really, most people actually do it in sections, bits and pieces, whether on purpose or just because they love hiking and they're out there, and then eventually end up doing it in its entirety. Those are the ones that usually are the most successful and enjoy it the most because they already kind of know, this is high Sierra long distance hiking. It takes a little breaking in. And I think it's pretty much the sections are driven by where you can resupply because aside from Tuolumne, there's no road that crosses the trail anywhere.
Well, the other thing that I thought about, I looked at section hiking this years ago, and I started to section hike, and then I may come back to it someday. I decided I want to go where I wanted to go. So anyway, but I was looking at breaking it up into sections, into leisurely week-long trips.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, cool, I'll break it into three sections. Well, it turns out that if you take 211, let's call it 220, divided by 3, that's easy. Well, yeah, that's great if you happen to be in the middle of wherever, and it's only 18 miles to get out on the nearest connector. And then you got to come, the next time you come in, you got to come 18 miles in on that same damn connector and pick it up. So that's a whole nother logistic challenge, right?
There's actually, I wrote them down here. There's 6 legitimate places that you can resupply. Then there's the start and stop, Happy Isles or Tuolumne. And then Whitney Portal. The real kicker is halfway through is basically Muir Trail Ranch. It's around mile 106 is on the trail is the takeoff to there. That is about halfway. And there is no easy resupply after that. And that's where we're going to give a shout out, because anybody that ever does this is the trail angel of the planet. Kearsarge Pass is about the only place that you can go over and get resupply. Now, we were too cheap to pay for mules, so we had Dave.
You had somebody you could convince. We'll ask Dave. Dave will do anything.
God, I'm so sorry. Anyway, I don't think he didn't really figure it out until I think he was halfway up over Kearsarge Pass that he was carrying 3 people's food for 3.5 days. That is a lot of weight. He carried it up 5 miles to a 12,000-foot pass, another 3 miles past there, met up with us, rested for not very long, and then went back out. So he's
I need to repeat this so everybody hears
Dave.
this, because yes, Dave, you're the dude. Dave, day hiked in with 11 days worth of food,
basically,
right, for three people times 3.5, whatever that is. It's close to 11 days. Hiked that in, met you in the middle of the wilderness, gave you food, and then took your trash out and hiked out in the same freaking day. Yeah, and I like Dave's comment. It sounds like Dave's a chump. Like,
Dave's an chump.
We're giving you kudos, but however it works. So, Kit, since you mentioned that's the halfway on the trail, we're actually at the halfway point on the show. So if you have questions for Kit, drop them in the Q&A, and we'll catch them at the end. So awesome.
What we did with ours is we did it in 16 days. It wasn't the original plan, but Jim needed to shorten it up a little bit, and we needed to meet Dave, and we just needed to hustle. Yeah. And truthfully, we were done with the fire with all the smoke. So Peter's My Resupply. We started at Happy Isles, and I picked up just went 2 days to Tuolumne, picked up food there. Red's Meadow was the next place you can mail food in. Generally, you will mail a hiker box to yourself somewhere. The easiest ones are Red's Meadow out of Mammoth. And let's see, Red's Meadow was about mile 57. It was a little too early to resupply, but it's a good thing to do. Jim did that. Peter and I skipped that. And then you continue on mile 87 is Mono Creek, which goes to Vermilion Ranch. You can also ship food to. It's a little harder to get off of. You've got to go around Edison Lake, and it's expensive. And then mile 106 is Muir Trail Ranch. That's a big resupply. They've got the ranch there that you can actually stay at. It's very expensive, but if you're desperate for a decent meal, it's a really good idea.
Now, if Dave, or if you didn't have someone to meet you at Kearsarge, right, you're in that long section where you don't have much in the way of resupply options, you could pay for a horsepack or a mule to bring it in, which what seems like there's a challenge. It's almost as challenging as meeting an individual, right? So you need a time when you're going to meet them. So you need to be at point A on the trail at time Y, and you need to make sure those two meet. And if you don't, that could be really, really tough.
Well, and we were not, because of the fire and what have you, the 3 of us were actually running a little bit behind in the time that we were to meet Dave. So we sent Peter, who's got like legs that start right here. We sent Peter to charge ahead and make sure that he at least intercepted Dave and said, "Here we are," so if Dave needed to turn around, he could go.
Yeah.
There is one of the other challenges about that is you have to allow for that. We were very fortunate. It was a very fast handoff. If you are going to have a mule carry some food in, which I know Jim has done on some of the trips, you literally have to plan a whole day, because you lose at least a half a day. Another thing, I haven't done this, but friends of mine have, there's starving climbers in Bishop. You hire a climber. They're cheaper than the mules to hump your stuff up and over.
Wow,
that's another good one. You cannot go up and stash food ahead of time, that is against Forest Service regulations. So you have to figure out some way to get it in there.
Right.
Either that or be able to make 106 miles over numerous passes. You've got Glen and Forester, both over 12,000 feet. Forrester's 13,000 feet to go over. It's rough territory. The passes and the general elevation gets higher, as you go south.
That's always a challenge. So another challenge, though, that you're facing is getting a permit, right? Because everybody needs a permit to hike on the JMT. So what's a good strategy, or what's some strategies on them?
Well, the strategy, by the way, has been changing from year to year, and I can only answer pre-COVID, because right now there really isn't much of a strategy. If you're going southbound, which is a traditional way, doesn't make any difference, then you have to go over Donahue Pass, and that's the limiter. There was just after Cheryl Strayed's book came out, just too many people flooded it.
Yeah.
It was a terrible thing. So there's a lottery system going over Donahue Pass. It doesn't matter which trail you take to get there. That really is the only way to access the JMT, to get out of the Yosemite Wilderness. So you have to have that particular pass, the Donahue Pass, in your possession to make it over. And there is a ranger there.
Yeah, because Donahue Pass is the official end of Yosemite. Am I correct? Yeah.
Correct.
So, and they used to do it. You used to be able to sneak in, or not sneak in, but they had, because I remember I came in through
like Mono Pass.
Yeah, or no, actually, no, something from the park. Why can't I think of the name of the point? But anyway, I came in from a slightly different trailhead.
We had tried doing a couple of different things. You can, go back around the backside of Lyle and kind of, you can do some off-trail shenanigans and do it, because it's perfectly legitimate to go any other way. You just can't go over Donahue if that's where you want to go. And that's the way they are limiting that. So you can go check online. I'm going to be giving you a, what is it? Did you call it a fact sheet?
Show notes.
Resource. Yeah, short notes. And it's going to be one of them will be where you apply for the lottery. Beautiful. Yeah, and it's like 5 to 6 months in advance. I suggest only that, the most in your group should be 4 to, marginalize your chances to do well. Have everybody in your group apply for the lottery and all the days that they're allowed to apply for it. So the 3 of us literally applied for 10 consecutive starting dates. So that's 30 people trying to get the starting date. I was the only one that got a permit.
Yeah. So permits are part of the preparation, but there's other preparation that you need to watch out for. So is there gear or training or food preparation that you'd want to mention?
Absolutely. I'm just going to give a little shout out to this. This is Long Lakes, and the arete of the mountain in the back, that is Bear Creek Spire. And that arete that you see the sun shining on Bear Creek Spire, this is my son and I had done this, and we actually climbed that the next day.
Because you're also an accomplished climber. Right on.
Yeah, this is fun stuff. Okay, so preparation and training. Well, first of all, people don't usually know you need a campfire permit in California, even if you just have a camp stove. There you go.
Right.
So I'm going to give you a link for that as well, anybody who needs it. This is not going to be, so I'm trying to keep the sun on my face. This is not going to be a gear chat. First of all, I am not the person to do that. I really am not. You can go online and get and again, I've got a couple of real fun links for that. But I think most people that are going to be watching this already kind of have their act together in terms of what their gear needs to be. But it does shift a little bit for long distance hiking. I will say that, in an effort to keep my pack weight down so I could keep up with the guys, I had nothing extra. And I think I told you we were near Trail Ranch, and I found out we had to shorten the trip by 2 days. I pitched a terrific fit. I mean, I waited till the guys were gone, but I was really in a snit. That was my low point. That was when I remembered why I wanted to do this and fixed my attitude. But I told them to go ahead because it was going to take me a while to fix my attitude, which it did. And I ended up, going in and paying $10 for 10 minutes to use the email to write a letter home. And then I shipped everything that was not essential home. Hiking pants. I shipped my hiking pants home. I walked in my hiking skirt and my long johns.
That's it.
That was it. There was nothing. I shipped home an extra pair of socks, a couple of things. When my kids got the package, it was like, why is Mom shipping home her laundry? What are we supposed to do with this?
But every ounce, every pound at that point was probably critical if you're trying to speed up.
Absolutely. And it also, that time gave me a chance to, this is one of my low points. I learned a lot through this. I realized that I needed to be here. I wanted to be here. 100% of this is going to be up to me in my head. And, as I need to just go tell the guys I'm all in, 100% in, and I appreciate you. And my gift to Jim was that in the hiker box at the Muir Trail Ranch, I found some really, really good bourbon. And I had a little 8-ounce, like a little plastic container that I was able to find. And I poured 8 ounces of bourbon into that and then carried it the next.
Because that is his drink, right? Oh, wonderful. So it kind of sounds, I'm going to summarize two things, right? It sounds like the prep, we've got the gear portion, we got the food portion, which is kind of important, but even more importantly, it sounds like it's the mental prep, right? It's getting your head in the game, if you will. So
getting your head in the game.
Yeah. We've got
Seriously.
right on. We got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to kind of scroll through and see if we got any questions on people that come up.
Yes. By the way, I will say, definitely train for it. A lot of people try and make their first 3 days on the trail their training. Bad idea.
Yeah. Doug asked a question, and I think we kind of addressed it, but let's double check it. Groups that hike together or meet up on the next camp. I think you were saying that you would meet up. I do something similar.
Yes. Because that was our flavor. When the three of us are together, that's our flavor. I lead quite a few groups with just women, and it's I really enjoy that. I did the Ray Lakes thing.
Oh, right.
And did another one, and doing another one. It's just kind of a fun thing to do, and it's a different dynamic. It's not that I don't love you guys, but and we will have a tendency to stick a little closer together. It just depends.
Yeah. The challenge comes, though, is if something goes wrong, right? If someone takes a wrong turn or if someone misses whatever it is. My group we'll always meet for lunch. We've also taken to always stopping at trail junctions. So even
always at trail junctions, that's just a safety thing.
Yeah.
I myself am more comfortable kind of just checking in with everybody about once every hour and a half. Just make sure, like, I see somebody else. If I need to know the last, and it's usually because it's a trip that I'm leading. So it's really interesting to go with the guys and I'm not leading, But just check and make sure that everybody's there.
Yeah.
Because things do happen. One trip that actually it was the Ray Lakes trip. One of the gals there, super strong, super amazing, and she wasn't telling us, but she was getting seriously altitude sick.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah.
And so she went with me on another trip, and I wasn't really aware that she had altitude problems at that time. And we went out of Cottonwood Lakes, and by the time that she finally, literally coughed up the fact that she was altitude sick, we were 3 days away from getting anywhere. So we just I had to get her out as quickly and as easily as I could. So we did a Grand Canyon trip with Doug, and I really like the way, this is a shout out to Doug. I like the way that Doug did it, which is, we can stretch out quite a bit, but we always seem to kind of group up about every hour and a half or so. If
nice. Nice. So one last question, and then we're gonna come to closing. Did you guys use an InReach or any other communication method while you were on the trail, especially if you're trying to reach your food drop, or was it just cross your fingers?
All right. Well, this was probably 4 or 5 years ago. Jim has an InReach, and he used that to speak to his wife every day. So they checked in, and that was a really good thing to do. Peter and I did not. So that would have been a good thing. I now have an InReach Mini, and I think it's a really great idea. I'm such a purist, like, I've got the map, that kind of thing. But as a safety feature, it's absolutely fantastic. And if you're trying to catch up with the resupply and you have a way to get them via sat phone, that's awesome. They're expensive and there's a learning curve, but we did not. Moving forward, I plan to.
Okay, awesome. Well, I got like 1 minute left, so we're gonna just kind of button things up. So I'm gonna remind you all that there's a lot of things that we couldn't cover There's some things that we wanted to cover that we ran out of time because we're having conversations. So we'll put some of that stuff in the show notes on YouTube. So that's the other thing is sometime tonight or tomorrow, I'll have this edited and put up on YouTube on the Wednesday Wind Down with Dan YouTube channel. You can find it right there. I'll put the link also on any of the Facebook posts that I put up. So next week, I'm going to be talking about gear on a budget. If we ever went through either of our closets, just what we have right now, we don't want to let anyone else in our life know how much we've spent unless they're a backpacker. And then let's go look at the gear that we've had, all the iterations of gear we've had. Because I've had 5 or 6 camp kitchens, and I've had 3 or 4 backpacks, and I have as many tents. And okay, so anyway, gear on a budget. We'll talk about that. So if you're a gear whore like myself, so that's what we'll be talking about next week. So Kit, I want to thank you for joining us. I love having you on. We appreciate it so much for sharing what you know.
No, thank you. This was so much fun. So much fun.
Good deal. All right. Well, thanks y'all for tuning in. And if you're on YouTube, thanks for watching. Have a great week. Take care.